Now, when I tested the BRZ Series Blue last year, I had a few reservations about the car, but I was ready to proclaim it to be one of the best driving sports cars that money can buy. Now, the current Subaru and Toyota twins have been around for nearly 4 years, so it's time that both companies give the car a thorough refresh. This week, I'm driving the fully revamped 2017 Subaru BRZ. However, you guys are probably noticing my shirt, so before I get into the review, I like to think of myself as a man of no bias, so let me prove that to you. There we go. I'm wearing the right shirt. Let's get on with the review, shall we? To believe that Toyota and Subaru started working on the 86 platform nearly 8 years ago. And in that time, a lot of enthusiasts have been extremely grateful that Toyota and Subaru decided to bring back a lightweight, inexpensive, rear-wheel drive sports car to the masses. And it was a vehicle that a lot of you could afford. It started around $25,000, which is right in line with all of the front-wheel drive hot hatch competitors that are out on the market. Now, when Subaru showed the BRZ version, I like to think of it as the more premium upscale version or twin of the car. I will be showing you guys a full review on the Toyota version, the 86, which has been renamed this year because the Scion brand is no more. But this week, I'm testing the fully revamped BRZ, and you can see the design of this refreshed 2017 model doesn't really look all that different. In fact, you have to be a BRZ or 86 fanboy to really notice the difference. I mean, staring at the front, you have these new LED, full LED headlights with the Kanoji style C-shaped LED daytime running light. This is standard on even the premium and limited model. My particular tester that I'm showing you is the limited. Now, when you also stare at the front end, you're going to notice a revised front bumper. It takes a lot of styling cues from that BRZ STI concept that we saw in New York last year. Now, overall, when you look at the proportions, Subaru didn't make this vehicle any larger. It weighs about the same, around 2,750 pounds. And this is just a mid-model year change. Now, looking around the side, you're going to notice new wheel designs. These are still 17-inch wheels on 215/45 summer performance tires. There is an optional wheel if you guys go for a new performance package, which is an all-black finish, slightly wider rim on a slightly wider tire. Now, at back, you're going to notice new LED taillights. Now, keep in mind, these are full LEDs. The turn signals are LEDs, the brake and the taillights are LEDs, in addition to the headlights being a full LED. There's also a new pedestal style aluminum rear spoiler that you're gonna on the limited model, like my tester. If you notice the finish, it's actually black on the top. It's a real aluminum spoiler. On the sides, it's gonna be painted whatever color you decide to get your BRZ in. Now, overall, I think the design of this car has aged very well, and I really like the changes that Subaru has made to this 2017 refresh model. But let's take a look at the interior and see some of the changes that Subaru has done for 2017. Now, because my BRZ is a limited, it does come standard with Subaru's smart key access system with push button start. Here's the familiar key fob that we all know and love from Subaru. All you have to do is keep the key fob in your pocket or your purse. To lock the door, touch your finger on this little pad. That locks the door for you. To unlock it, all you have to do is touch the back of the door handle, and that unlocks the door for you. Now, looking at the interior of the latest BRZ, you can see the overall design hasn't really changed much. It's really just all in the details that Subaru updated. The seats, they're the same, super supportive, Alcantara and leather equipped on my tester because it's a limited model. So they're really grippy. They hold you in place really well. I find them to be extremely comfortable. Another thing you're going to notice is the new steering wheel. It's got new steering wheel audio controls, which is something I complained about in the Series Blue that I tested for you guys. And then looking at the rest of the door panel, you're going to see, you have this new soft leather padded area for your for the upper part of the door panel for down here, and there's also a leather padded area here around the speaker grille, just because Subaru thought that, if you're going to be tracking this car, some of you taller folks are going to be resting your knees there, so it's a really nice detail that Subaru did for this vehicle. Now, stepping inside, the BRZ is definitely really low to the ground. It's still that way for this refreshed model. So you do have to kind of fall into the car, but this is kind of what you want. You have a very low stance to this car. It feels like a proper sports car. Now when you shut the door, the funk sounds pretty solid. I mean, this vehicle's chassis is getting a little bit old, but it still feels relatively new, especially for this refresh model. Now, you can see here, a push-button start is included on my tester because it's unlimited. All you have to do is put the clutch in, keep the key inside the vehicle, and then push the button to fire it up. You can see the tach does a really cool sweep, and what you're hearing is the familiar 2-liter Boxer flat 4. Now the engine is slightly revised this year with new intake and exhaust manifolds, and you do get 5 more horsepower on the manual transmission model, so we'll get into the test drive later on. You're also going to notice immediately there's an all-new 4.2-inch LCD screen on the right side here. Now you get this LCD screen when you go for the limited models. If you guys go for the premium, you're going to get the same gauge cluster as last year's model. Now that screen is pretty cool. It's controlled via this new control pad here on the steering wheel. And you can see here, this is the kind of the performance setting. This is kind of showing your throttle application right here. It'll even show your power band here. And this engine, surprisingly, as you guys know, is known for having kind of a dip in torque around 4,000 RPM, and the needle there is actually showing it. So that's really interesting. Cycle through here, you can see it has a new lap stopwatch function. It has a G meter, which is cool, and then go back to your throttle settings. Now you can adjust several things here. This is your trip computer on the side here. It'll show your average fuel economy. It'll show your average speed, the total distance to empty, and it'll also show different gauges here for your coolant temperature, your oil pressure, and then your volts. So I mean, this new helper screen is very nice. Combine that with the new steering wheel controls, and the BRZ finally is kind of in the 21st century in terms of some tech in this cabin. Now looking at the rest of the interior, you can see those of you who own the previous generation are going to notice some new finishes here. There's a new leather padded area here where previously this was plastic or the carbon fiber look trim. The dashboard is still soft touch pretty much on the entire upper portion of the dash, and most of the materials in here fit together pretty well. I do notice a little bit of kind of inconsistency in the way that some of the panels fit here, but I'm going to dismiss this as mine being kind of an earlier production model. Looking at the door panels here, it is still hard plastic right here, but the graining is the same graining as on the dash, so it's nice to look at. You have some WRX style carbon fiber trim on the window controls here, and by the way, the windows are one-touch automatic for both, so that's nice that Subaru gave you that. Now looking at the center stack here, you're going to notice this is the latest 6.2-inch Subaru Starlink infotainment system. It's much better versus the old system that was in that series blue. When you put the vehicle in reverse, you do get a standard backup camera, even on the base model. It doesn't have trajectory, just has some distance markers, no sensors or anything like that. It's a pretty rudimentary style backup camera, nothing super fancy. This is still a BRZ. Now looking at the rest of the way Starlink works, if you guys are familiar with latest Subarus, it pretty much works decently well. The touch response is good. The screen is a little bit on the small side. The Miata, this car's main competitor, has a 7-inch screen, which definitely makes it look huge, especially with that small interior. Going to the home page here, you're going to find your sources, audio, apps, settings, and the phone. You're going to notice this car does not offer factory navigation. If you want nav, Subaru says you need to download the Starlink app. Go to Starlink and then download the Magellan function from your phone that works with Starlink, and that's how you get navigation. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, if they're going to not offer nav, they need to put Android Auto and Apple CarPlay in this car, which, by the way, it still doesn't have it. So those of you who are looking for that are going to be slightly disappointed. Subarus have never really had the greatest infotainment systems. The new Impreza is supposed to change that. That is supposed to introduce Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, I believe. The stereo system also is like a 8-speaker Subaru head sound system. It's okay. It's not very, when you turn up the volume a little bit too loud, it definitely gets distorted. It's not the best sound system. I imagine a lot of owners are going to be replacing that with aftermarket systems. Now, looking at the lower controls here, you can see my tester, because it's a limited, has dual zone automatic climate control. It's definitely a nice feature to have. You have some new buttons or knobs here that controls the actual climate control system. It looks a little bit nicer. I like the silver finish. It kind of brightens up the cabin. My tester also has heated seats. That does come standard on the limited. And then you're going to notice a couple of buttons here. This obviously turns off your stability control. And then this right here is actually new. This used to say VSC Sport on the old one. Now it's called Track. And what Subaru's done is they've basically upped the levels of slip ability in this car. So it lets you have a little bit more fun. It's so different that Subaru decided to rename it Track. So I'll briefly show you guys how car is like to drive when it's in that mode. It definitely allows you to have a little bit more fun. Looking at the rest of the center console here, you can see there's good storage, but there's still no armrest here, which I'm very disappointed by, and I just find myself, wishing there was a padded armrest here. I imagine a lot of you may go to the aftermarket to add something like that. Then you're going to have, your storage here for your cup holders. This is still removable, so that's nice. It gives you a bunch of that. Now looking at the glove compartment here, it is damped, not lined with felt, but it's a decent size. It'll hold your owner's manual and whatever else you want to keep in this vehicle. Now, a sunroof is still not available in the BRZ. I'm not sure if some of you may want to add that. It's something that I personally like. I just like the aspect of having the sun inside the cabin. Otherwise, the interior has been very nicely updated. I like the new steering wheel. I like the leather on it. It feels good. The gauges look good. And then there's mostly new tech in here. One thing that I'm going to knock Subaru on is there's no one-touch 3-blink function for the turn signal stock. Most new cars today have that feature, and I'm just surprised that Subaru decided not to add that for this refresh model. But again, these are minor gripes. The interior overall is a nicely updated version of the first generation. Now, one of the reasons why the BRZ is so popular with enthusiasts is because you do actually have a back seat that you can theoretically put people back here, but you want to actually be kind of short when you get back here. There isn't really much leg room, but for demonstration purposes, I'll get back here and I'll show you guys what it's like to sit in the back seat of the BRZ. Now, first of all, the roof is pretty low, so your taller friends are going to be hitting their heads on the roof if you make them sit back here. But making the seat come back, this is obviously not where I had the front seat, but it kind of squishes my feet when I am sitting back here, and you can see this will only fit 2 people. There's not room for a third, but you have the same, Alcantara with the leather. So it is decent. I mean, I probably wouldn't want to sit back here for longer than like 30 minutes, but if you need to get 2 people back here in a pinch, the BRZ will certainly do it. The trunk capacity on the BRZ is also quite decent. You can see here, most of my camera equipment fits in here. You're looking at around 6.9 cubic feet of space. The opening is a tad on the small side, so you guys got to keep that in mind if you do decide to take this vehicle to Costco. You do get a temporary spare tire under there, so that's good. Subaru doesn't give you a fix-to-fly kit, but overall the trunk capacity is decent, but you're not going to be putting too much stuff back here. So underneath the hood of the 2017 BRZ, you're going to find a pretty familiar engine. It's still the same 2-liter boxer 4-cylinder engine with direct and port injection. Now this engine is naturally aspirated. There's no turbo, of course, but you're going to notice a couple of changes this year. First of all, the aluminum intake manifold is now present. It has been painted red, that STI red. It's a pretty nice looking engine compartment, much improvement over the plastic one that you found on the earlier BRZs and FRS models. Now that updated, revised aluminum air intake manifold and an exhaust manifold revision, as well as new cylinder heads and valves, translate to a 5 horsepower boost on the manual transmission models only. This is now rated at 205 horsepower, which is actually more than 100 horsepower per liter if you're going to go by that, and also 5 more pound-feet of torque. It's rated at 156 pound-feet of torque. The automatic models are still rated at 200 and 151 pound-feet of torque. Now, fuel economy surprisingly actually took a dip. It's now rated at 2129, which is 1 mpg less versus that 2015 or 2016 model if you guys are going to look at the previous pre-refreshed models. Now, the BRZ is still a lightweight rear-drive sports car. It has a limited slip, Torsen limited slip differential. It weighs around 2,800 pounds, so this is still a very fun car to drive, and it makes pretty decent numbers. Of course, a lot of you are probably looking for more power, but it's made it to a 6-speed manual in my particular tester with revised ratios and a lower final drive ratio. Let's get out on the road and see how it works, shall we? So first, setting off in the revamped BRZ, the first thing I'm noticing immediately is the clutch is a lot lighter, the take-up is also shorter, and the transmission, the 6-speed, the throws are less notchy. They're a little bit smoother going into the gate, so Subaru has revised the feel of the 6-speed, and they've also improved the gearing, in theory giving us better acceleration. Now, when I drove that Series Blue, I really liked the way it drove. I mean, it's a very serious and focused sports car, and as most of you guys know, my personal vehicle is actually the ND Miata, the new Miata, so I do drive this car's main competitor, but that's not to say that I don't appreciate the BRZ. But let's take a look and see some of the updates and see if Subaru's really improved on this car's overall feel and acceleration. definitely still a lot of fun to drive. I left the stability control on there, and it still kind of grabs at the throttle every time you're kind of driving this car a little aggressively. It's kind of think of it as your overprotective mother pulling you back from keeping you from jumping out of that plane if you're gonna go skydiving. Now this car still makes a really good noise, and I'm happy to say that Subaru's really improved this car's acceleration. Now the 5 horsepower, I mean, that's laughable. That's not really, you're not going to really feel that. However, the gearing, the revised gearing is a huge improvement. And whereas before, whenever I would shift from first to second, it felt like I was putting the vehicle in fourth. Now that's not really the case. You feel this car kind of surge forward. It feels like it has torque now, which before it didn't. That was the difference that I noticed between the Miata, is the Miata always felt faster because it had the right gearing, and Subaru seems to have improved it. I'm not sure if this is quicker than the new Miata. I'd have to, you know, line the two up, do a drag race, but there's not really any test data. This car still feels like around a 6-second car, but the difference now is in the real world, this car feels a lot faster when you're just kind of driving it normally around town. Now, I had it in its track sitting there, and you can see the stability control still kind of grabs at you annoyingly every time you go to, like, for example, if I chirp into second, which is a little annoying. It makes the car kind of jerk as it goes into second gear, but I have to admit that this car feels really good. The overall acceleration feeling is really improved. I like the noise that the 2-liter Boxer makes, and the steering is still remarkably excellent in this car. Still light effort, still incredibly fast and precise. The car just changes direction so quickly, and the suspension stays nice and flat. Now, by the way, Subaru did revise the suspension tuning for this car for 2017. It's got a larger rear stabilizer bar, and they retuned the shock absorbers in the front and rear. So they're claiming better handling, better ride quality, and I'm not really entirely sure if the handling is better. I'd have to get this car out on a racetrack, but I will comment on the ride quality, because before it was a little too firm all the time, and now it feels still firm, but it's nice and well damped. And this car definitely feels a lot more comfortable if I was going to take it, you know, on a long road trip. Now, unfortunately, this is still a sports car, and it's not really the quietest car, but who cares about quiet when you can go around corners and just do that? This is definitely still one of the most fun cars you can have for $25,000. This is just a total riot, especially when you get it on these back roads and you get the engine revs up there. I mean, this car loves being driven quickly. And even though it doesn't really have that, you know, that Honda VTEC snarl when you get it above $5,000, it has its own unique character, its own unique noise. And those of you who are looking for a sports car for under $30,000, you're really going to find a lot to like with this all-new, refreshed BRZ. This is exactly why you bought a BRZ, is because you could do little drifts like that. And I have to say, the track mode will let you do that. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. And this car has always been a tail-happy car, and that's still the case for this refreshed model. It's still a really fun car that likes to wag its tail. And what you're hearing there is the shift light. That is programmable. You can have it go off at certain RPMs. I have it set to go off at 7,000 right now, and it has a little beep. But I mean, oh my God, this car is fantastic. It really loves back roads like this. This is phenomenal. This car is really good. I mean, this is the car that you don't buy because of its straight line performance. I mean, I admit this car is not that fast. It's just like a Miata. It's not that fast. But when you drive this car hard, when you rev out that engine, it just rewards you so much with really fantastic steering, flat neutral handling, and a chassis that's begging for, you know, for mods. I mean, this car could easily handle the turbocharged motor from the WRX, which everyone would love it if Subaru would do that. I'm not entirely sure why they haven't, but honestly, does this car need more power? No. Could it use more power? Yes. So it really just depends. Those of you who are power hungry are probably not going to be looking at this car, but you bought this car because it is a handling finesse, because it's like a scalpel. It's so precise. The steering is so good, and it just puts a huge smile on your face for not that much money, honestly. This is one of the best buys you can buy from the factory, sports cars, and it's just begging for you to make all kinds of changes to it, which is why so many people love this car, love this chassis so much. Now, Now let's talk about a couple of numbers here. The fuel economy, in case you guys are wondering, I mentioned it earlier that this car's gas mileage actually dropped by 1 mpg. I've actually been averaging around 25 miles per gallon, so that's not bad. It's about 5 miles per gallon less than what I get in the Miata, but again, this car's 500 pounds heavier. It's got more horsepower, the gearing is different. I'm not entirely sure why the gas mileage is so different, but it is. But it's still not bad gas mileage. This is what you're going to get from most of the hot hatches, like a GTI, this Focus ST, the old Civic Si, for example. Now, regarding the price, this is probably where Subaru has the most win for this refresh model. It starts at $25,495 for the base premium, and it's only $100 more than last year's model, and you get all of this improved stuff in addition to the full LED headlights and taillights. I mean, that's a bargain. It starts at $25,500, and that's right in line with the Mazda Miata, the Volkswagen GTI, the Ford Mustang, the Chevrolet Camaro. Now, keep in mind that the Camaro and Mustang, the GTI, or the Focus ST all have more horsepower, but again, you bought this car for its handling finesse, for its balance, and really at that point, its only real competitor is the Miata, although the Miata is a convertible, slightly less practical, which is why, you know, some of you may end up choosing the BRZ. Now, my tester is the limited model, so it starts at around $2,000 more. You get the dual zone climate control, you get the upgraded Alcantara seats, you get the push button start, you get that spoiler in the back and the fog lights. This one starts at around $2,000 more, $27,500. And then, of course, there's also a new performance package which rolls in Sachs shock absorbers, Brembo 4-piston brakes, and then those black 17-inch wider, fatter wheels. That's like $1,100. Now, my tester obviously doesn't have the performance package, but its stickers are around $29,300, just over $29,300, which represents a great bargain. Of course, if you guys don't care for all the stuff in the limited, you can still get the premium for around $25,000. There is also a Series Yellow, a limited edition that Subaru is releasing, that basically is a limited with the performance package, yellow paint exterior, and then yellow and black accents in the interior with some special badging. That one will kiss around $30,500 if you guys want that. So that's currently, that right now is the most expensive BRZ. But, you know, overall, I'm very impressed with this refresh model. It still could use more power for the most power hungry, but I'm happy to say the revised gearing has improved the acceleration. The fuel economy is pretty much average. The seats are comfortable. The ride is better. It still handles beautifully. The steering is still surgically precise, and it's still a very fun car for the money. So if you guys are looking for one of the best handling sports cars on the market, and you need the occasional backseat and a decent trunk, the BRZ and its 86 Twin are definitely worth a look. But if you guys, you know, want something that's a little bit more practical, of course, there's the Golf GTI. If you guys want a convertible, there's the Mazda Miata. I mean, right now is basically a wonderful time if you're an enthusiast and you're looking to spend under $30,000. But anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed my overview of this 2017 revamped BRZ. If you're looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, keep subscribed to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you all in the next video.